What's up, everybody? GeauxBurns welcoming you to another episode of my obviously unoriginal series, Top 10. I think we've been over this a few times, but you guys enjoy my Top 10 videos, and maybe Top 10 is just a very popular idea, so that's why so many others do Top 10 vids on YouTube. Maybe that's why you enjoy them so much. But anyways, today we are doing Top 10 future locations for Grand Theft Auto. And in last week's Top 10 video, I opened the floodgates, giving you the opportunity to submit your favorite location, spot, destination, city that you would like to see featured in a future GTA game by the comment section, Twitter, Facebook, as well as email, GeauxBurns@gmail.com. And we got technically 6 submissions from you guys. Actually, it was a few more than 6, but some of you had the same idea. We had 2 selections for one city, 2 selections for another city. In other words, there was just some of you that had the same mindset. You thought, hey, this would be a good idea for a city, and that's cool. And, you know, there's so many awesome cities and parts of the world that would make for great locations for a future Grand Theft Auto game. Maybe not Grand Theft Auto 6, but maybe some down the world, or maybe a prequel sequel game set in between the events of Grand Theft Auto 5 and Grand Theft Auto 6, similar to how Vice City and San Andreas is, you know, to Grand Theft Auto 3. Not exactly set before Grand Theft Auto 3, but they did come out after Grand Theft Auto 3 because they were prequels. And I guess you could say they're set in between 3 and 4, even though, you know, Grand Theft Auto 4, Chinatown Wars, and Grand Theft Auto 5 are part of the HD universe, which is supposed to be different than the 3D universe. But anyways, I digress. We're going to do this a little differently than we have in previous videos. Now, sometimes I go alphabetically. Other times I go in reverse order. Today, it's all about the sandwich, baby, because there's 6 slots that you guys took, which meant that there are 4 slots available. And I had to come up with them. I had to put on my brainstorming cap, and I had to do all this knowledge stuff. Okay, so I came up with 4 city location areas throughout the world. And I'm going to put 2 at the beginning of this video and 2 at the end of this video following the 6 selections, which is going to be the nice creamy middle of this top 10 Grand Theft Auto location sandwich. By the way, let me know below in the comment section of all these locations and cities that will be mentioned, which one would you like to see featured in a future Grand Theft Auto game? All right, so I get to go first and second. I'm going to start off because it is Cinco de Mayo. I'm going to go with Mexico City. Not because Cinco de Mayo is Mexican Independence Day. That is a common mistake that is made, I guess, predominantly in the United States, because we celebrate Cinco de Mayo, well, we as in Americans who like to have an excuse to drink and party. And unfortunately, Cinco de Mayo is not the only holiday that's victim of this. You have St. Patrick's Day, you have New Year's Eve, for example, Halloween. The list goes on and on. We Americans like to come up with excuses to party. And unfortunately, Cinco de Mayo is one of the many holidays throughout the world that falls victim to American party time. Actually, Mexican Independence Day, if you were wondering, is on September 16th. Cinco de Mayo was a victory that the Mexican army had against French forces, I think somewhere in the 1860s, and it happened to take place on the 5th of May, aka Cinco de Mayo, and it was a turning point in the French-Mexican War because it ultimately led to Mexico's victory over the French invaders. Okay, so why Mexico City? Well, Mexico City is actually a very, very old city. It's older than a lot of people realize. In fact, it was originally founded in 1325 by the Aztecs. It was their ancient capital, Tenochtitlan. I probably mispronounced that, completely butchering whatever the original name of Mexico City was. It's very old. And it wasn't for a few more centuries until the name was changed to Mexico City. So it definitely has a lot of Spanish history along with Aztec history to it. And parts of Mexico also have Mayan history. So yes, a lot of historical landmarks around Mexico City in the Mexican Valley. And we don't even have to stop with Mexico City. I like the idea of actually having kind of like just a version of Mexico to play around with in a future Grand Theft Auto game. But obviously the center point would be Mexico City, or whatever the fictitious name of it is. Ciudad de Mexico is the Mexican translation of Mexico City. It is also the oldest capital in the Americas. And not only do we have landmarks, there's also border towns that could be, put in this version of Mexico, like Tijuana or Ciudad Acuna. That's the one I'm more familiar with because it's on the border with Del Rio, and I've spent some time in Southwest Texas on the Edwards Plateau, and I went to Ciudad Acuna once for like 5 minutes. It's an interesting story. Needless to say, it was on a holiday and nothing was open, so we went across the border to Ciudad Acuna. We drove around Ciudad Acuna for like 5-10 minutes, and then we had to drive back because all the restaurants were closed. Kind of sucked. But anyways, another awesome city in Mexico. By the way, there's a lot of awesome cities. This one would be perfect because it's a top tourist destination, Cancun. That's right, baby, Cancun, Mexico. So yeah, you could put some border towns. You could put a tourist destination by the ocean, like Cancun, along with landmarks and the big city, Mexico City. And, there's other stuff like the Mexican cartels, the drug war going on down there. Kind of a big deal and could be the center point, the main part of the story regarding a future Grand Theft Auto Mexico storyline. Where you're having to work for this cartel or that cartel, or you're trying to start your own cartel. You're having to deal with this war going on. You have to deal with the federales. You have to deal with BS coming from the states. So it would be interesting to see a Mexico-themed Grand Theft Auto game, since it's so close to the U.S. border. And, I think there's a lot of satire you could throw in there as well, and, actually give people some idea about what Mexico is really like, because it's actually a very, very beautiful country. My next submission is going to be across the pond to Great Britain. And this includes, obviously, England, Wales, Scotland. Similar to my Mexico Grand Theft Auto location, this one would have a main city, which is obviously going to be London, which is older than Mexico City. London was founded by the Romans in 43 AD. That's how long London town has been around, for nearly 2,000 years. It has an ancient historical city, tons of landmarks. Tower Bridge, Buckingham Palace, Parliament, Big Ben, the River Thames, Trafalgar Square, and let's go beyond the city, because I don't want it to just be about London. I want it to be the entire island. I want you to be able to go see Stonehenge, maybe some weird druid shit going on, go to the awesome, Dover White Cliffs. That would be really cool. And we're not just going to stay in England. We're going to go to Wales, go check out Cardiff, then go up north, up past Manchester to Scotland. My ancestral homeland, I believe. And, Edinburgh, the Highlands, the Loch Ness, maybe even the Loch Ness Monsters lurking in there waiting to nab you and drag you into the lake to your watery doom. That could be something in the game. And, some references. Why not? When we think of, British, we think of Monty Python. We think of Sherlock Holmes. We think of Doctor Who. We think of 007, James Bond. So throw a lot of movie, TV references in a Grand Theft Auto Britain game. And another good reason to have a Grand Theft Auto game set in Britannia is because of Rockstar North, which is in Scotland. So I think the guys in Rockstar North know a thing or two about Scotland, England, Wales. They have a pretty good idea of what would actually work in a British-themed Grand Theft Auto game. And I realize there has been technically a British Grand Theft Auto game. It wasn't really a game. It was like an expansion to the original Grand Theft Auto. It was called Grand Theft Auto London 1960-something. I don't even count that, to be honest. No, it does not do London, England, Wales, Scotland, and Great Britain justice. So it'd be really awesome if we got a Grand Theft Auto British-themed game with obviously British satire to it. Okay, so those are my first two selections. Now we're going to go to your selections. Then we'll come back at the very end of the video with my last two selections. First off, we're going with Elaine. For a future location, I'd go with Tokyo. Tokyo is beautiful with amazing architecture all around. There's a deeply interesting culture with a mixture of classical Japanese history, modern pop culture with Tokyo's bright lights and a mix of different kinds of people. It will definitely make an interesting location and give the series a change of pace. All right, so I agree entirely with Elaine. I like the idea of Tokyo being featured in a future Grand Theft Auto game. You could have kind of like a Tokyo Drift thing going on, like one of the bazillion, what was those Fast and Furious movies? It was one of like 20 of them. I don't know how many have come out so far. To be honest, I never watched any of them. But anyway, so you could have that going on because there's a lot of people that want like drift cars in Grand Theft Auto. So that would be kind of a cool location as well. And the capital of Japan, Tokyo, is the current seat of power of not only the Japanese government, but the emperor. Not that emperor. There's actually an emperor of Japan. He doesn't really have any power, though. He's more of a figurehead. Kind of sort of like Queen Elizabeth II, even though some would argue she actually does have some power because she's over more than one country. You know, she's over England, Wales, Scotland. Those countries I just mentioned a moment ago, including Canada and Jamaica, as well as Australia. More on that coming up soon. New Zealand, etc. But anyways, they do have an emperor who doesn't have as much power as he used to. Anyway, so continuing with the idea for Tokyo, it was originally named Edo, or Edo. If I mispronounced it, I'm sorry, from the year 1603 to 1868. Now, the emperor at the time in 1868 moved the seat of power to Tokyo and renamed it from Edo to Tokyo. And the original seat of power in Japan was Kyoto, I believe, and now it's Tokyo. So he made it the capital of Japan. And if you always look in like the background to the Tokyo's massive skyline, you see a big, beautiful mountain. And of course, that mountain is Mount Fuji. And it definitely needs to be in a Grand Theft Auto Tokyo game. So you'd have the city of Tokyo, as massive it is, and a little bit of outskirts, a little bit of country as well. You know, the different provinces of, you know, out that are outside of the major city of Tokyo, along with the Mount Fuji. You could go all the way out there if you want. And, you know, there's also the Yakuza you'd have to deal with, you know, similar to what we were talking about with my idea for a Mexico City or Mexico Grand Theft Auto game, where you'd have, instead of cartels, you'd have to deal with the Yakuza or different other factions as well. There's, you know, obviously a big video game industry in Japan. Maybe there's some of that going on there. You have to steal the latest video game, or you have to, I don't know, something involved with video games, a little play on that. Plus, anime is kind of big in Japan as well. And Godzilla, you could have like a Godzilla reference. So yeah, there's a lot to go with Japan, aka the land of the rising sun. And maybe, just maybe, because Japan is referred as the land of the rising sun, you could call Tokyo Sun City. And I know I asked you guys to come up with names for these cities, but it's kind of hard to, admittedly, because, you know, it's just sometimes you just think of a name and you try and think of a name and you got nothing. But anyways, thank you for that submission, Elaine, regarding Tokyo. Next, we go up across the border to Canada, to Kevin Boston. Thanks for including me in this week's top 10. Well, that was last week's top 10. Now on to the many cities I would like to see a future Grand Theft Auto game. For the sake of your list, let's focus on one. He wants a Grand Theft Auto game to take place in Ottawa, Ontario, which is the capital of Canada. I think there are a lot of things you can do with the Parliament in the city, involve missions, maybe trying to kill the Prime Minister. Let's not try to kill the Prime Minister, Kevin. Maybe like blackmail the Prime Minister, maybe kidnap him, or just something like that. We don't need to go to that extreme. Or breaking into Parliament, or even trying to get to 24 Sussex Drive. This is the water fasting to me, because politics have never really played a role in Grand Theft Auto games, and there's some political jokes in Grand Theft Auto 5, but that's about it. Sorry, I cannot think of a fictional name for Ottawa. I would like to see this take place in present day, because present day is best. Ottawa would be a very interesting city to do a Grand Theft Auto game. And because it's the capital of Canada, yep. And it's the capital you probably thought was Toronto. Actually, no, I knew it was Ottawa, Kevin, but I'm sure some people out there get it mistaken. But anywho, I hope you like this idea, and it's funny, a Canadian picking your Canadian city. But I think it's high time the Grand Theft Auto comes out of the United States. The United States is a nice country, but it's not the only country, and this will likely never happen because the people have Rockstar, who designed to make Grand Theft Auto games, hate every other country. except for the United States. Okay, that's not true. A lot of the times they just focus on Grand Theft Auto being in the United States because I guess it's easier to satirize us, to make fun of Americans. We're not threatening to go to war with you just because you make fun of us. We just cry in the corner at night in our beds. Okay, I rambled on enough, and hope you include it. Okay, I did include it, so there you go. And a little bit of a FYI, some additional information about Ottawa, because this is kind of a learning thing as well. You're getting some knowledge while we do this top 10. Ottawa, like Kevin mentioned, is the capital of Canada. It is the 4th largest city in Canada. It was founded in 1826 as Bytown. B-Y town, not B-I town, as in, you know what I mean. Bytown. That was the original name, and it was incorporated as Ottawa in 1855. And Ottawa is, I guess, Native American. I think it's Algonquin for to trade. So you could call it Trade City. Could be Trade City. I mean, it's kind of cool since that's what Ottawa roughly translates to. There's several landmarks there, including a National Arts Building, the Center, the National Gallery, the Ottawa River, Parliament, as Kevin mentioned. So yeah, it'd be kind of cool if we had a Canadian-themed Grand Theft Auto game. And it would be perfect because one of the characters in Grand Theft Auto 5, Trevor, is Canadian, even though I don't think he is from that part of Canada. See, Ottawa is on the east side of Canada. Not too far from the U.S. border, actually. But I think where Trevor's born is more to the Midwest. But still, I mean, since he's Canadian, maybe he can flee back to Canada and somehow he ends up in Ottawa or Trade City and go from there. So anyways, thanks for the submission, Kevin, regarding Ottawa as one of the future locations perhaps we'll go to in the next Grand Theft Auto or Grand Theft Auto game down the road. Next, we are going to two people. First, Jake the Gamer, Detroit, Car City in the 70s, and Session Box. I'd go with Detroit. I'd say there would be a good location filled with rappers and drugs. Okay. So, 2 submissions for Detroit. And a little bit of information regarding Detroit. It was founded in 1701 by a French explorer and adventurer, Antoine Cadillac. And maybe call the city Cadillac City. I don't know. I mean, I realize, there's a brand called Cadillac, a vehicle brand. But you could call it Cadillac City, in honor of the French dude that founded it back in 1701. In the 19th century, Detroit became an important industrial hub in the Great Lakes region. And, of course, in the 20th century, it was very important for the American automobile industry. But somewhere after the 1970s is when it began to collapse. And it really never recovered too much. I mean, it used to be one of the largest cities in the United States, but it's gone down a little bit over the past few decades. So I get the idea of it being set in the 70s, Jake. It's perfect because so far we haven't had a game set in the 70s from Grand Theft Auto. We've had, Vice City in the 80s. We had San Andreas in the early 90s. And yeah, I think that would be kind of cool if it was kind of a prequel GTA game. And, Detroit would be very good for that, I think. Next, we move on to Oisin from Ireland, and surprisingly, he did not pick Boston. Denver would be my choice. I love the mountainous landscape. The fictional name was Daso, or Daso. At least you came up with a fictional name of Oisin, so whatever it is, Daso, works for me, friend. And the setting in modern times, like Grand Theft Auto 5, was set in the year it came out, wondering what achievements in technology we've achieved. So, yeah, I think that most future Grand Theft Auto games will be set in present day. I don't know if they're ever going to go back and do like a prequel like Vice City or San Andreas, even though it would be cool if they did, especially like I mentioned, somewhere in the 70s, during the disco days and all that stuff. Plus, like I mentioned a moment ago, Detroit, Kiss, Detroit, Rock City. Rock and rap have a history in Detroit. It's not just all about rap. And when it comes to drugs, what city doesn't have drugs? All right, so regarding Denver, it is currently the capital city of the state of Colorado, also known as Mile High City because it is a mile above the ocean in elevation, also known as the Queen City of the Plains and Wall Street of the West. And it was founded in 1858. And currently, Colorado is one of the few states in the United States that has legal marijuana. That means if you want to smoke cannabis, that green herb, ganja, baby. You can go to Colorado and you can purchase some, you can smoke some, and you don't have to worry about getting in trouble because it's perfectly legal in Colorado. And guess what? Colorado's making a lot of money right now because of the fact that they have marijuana legalized in their states, which means that other states throughout the country will eventually follow suit. And, well, so much for the federal government's expensive, costly war on drugs, because it does pay. Yes, it does. Okay, so next we are moving on to James Ronald Trump. Cleveland would be a good location. It's like San Andreas, lots of tourist spots. I think my hometown, Cleveland, could be the new anywhere city. Big cities like Los Angeles, New York, etc. have been done to death. Yes, I agree. I don't think that we need another quote-unquote big city, James. And, like, if anyone's wondering, like, what he means by anywhere city, I think that was the city in GTA 2. It was not based on any city specifically. It was just this weird, it was a weird city. And it was the lesser known of the Grand Theft Auto franchise, GTA 2. I played it a lot on PC, but it definitely was the least popular. And that's why it's so easily forgotten. But anyways, regarding Cleveland, it is known as the Forest City and is at the southern shore of Lake Erie, one of the 5 Great Lakes. So right there, you have some awesome scenery. Big, vast, beautiful lake. And of course, it was founded in 1796. And Cleveland, also very similar to Detroit. It had some economic problems in the decades past and kind of went downhill as well. I don't know if it is as bad as it was in Detroit, but still, you know, it suffered some economic issues. And a lot of cities have, unfortunately, over the past several years. But at the same time, you know, yes, Cleveland is also a very beautiful city, just like all these cities with their own, you know, heritage, their own landmarks, their own places to go and see. And that's something I definitely want in a future Grand Theft Auto game, something that we have yet to see in not only a Grand Theft Auto game, but in a game in general. Now, I realize I did mention this in the comments section last week, was that it didn't matter if it happened to be a city that was in another IP, like New Orleans is obviously featured in Mafia 3 as New Bordeaux, or Detroit more or less in the Saints Row games. What matters is it's not covered or never been done in a Grand Theft Auto game. And I think it would be really cool, you know, if we had something like a Cleveland or an Ottawa or even a Tokyo, for example, something completely different to feature somewhere down the road in a future Grand Theft Auto game. But let us go on to the 6th and final selection from you guys. And once again, it comes from 2 of you. Yes, 2 of you. First off with Young Knight. As for location, I would pick Boston. Movies like The Town and Gone Baby Gone kind of make me wonder why we don't have a city like this in games. Actually, we do. Fallout 4, you know, the Commonwealth, Boston. So at least one video game already has featured Boston. But like I mentioned already, I would not mind seeing Boston in a Grand Theft Auto world. Now, of course, Sedan, he also picked Boston. I let Young Knight go first, Sedan, because he had less to say. You want the most wicked, awesome city in the United States? Well, welcome to Fleetwood, Massachusetts. I like that. Fleetwood works. We'll go with that. The Grand Theft Auto approximation of Boston. Join up with your Irish Street gang. Irish American. As you embark on a journey to take on the Italians and Russians in the city to become the crime boss of Fleetwood. Yeah, I think there is Russians there, isn't there? Or is it just Irish? I don't remember. Departed, yeah. I love Departed. Another good movie set in Boston. Okay, the city became a crime boss of Fleetwood, beat up people, hockey sticks, and run them over with your Buick Roadmaster. My grandfather actually had a Buick Roadmaster. It was really awesome. All the while screaming, "Get bent!" and blasting your classic rock music. Now throw dead bodies into Fleetwood Harbor. And they're like bundles of English tea. Having a little, tea party at the expense of gangbangers. Explore the classy mob-run North End. Test your luck on the mean streets of East Fleetwood. Enjoy a few beers and watch baseball games with your pals from Southie. Or terrorize college kids downtown. Experience a city that lives firmly in the past and a citizenry that refuses to modernize. Rob Packies, liquor stores, for a few extra bucks or break out the weed to earn a little green, and maybe even throw a pan of hot clam chowder in someone's face after they make the mistake of asking you for some cranberry juice. Boston would make a great setting for cultures representing the city. Italian American, Irish American, Yankee are diverse from one another and also great to poke fun of, maybe exaggerate a little. You also get awesome locations like the gold-domed Capitol building, a little graveyard underneath the bridge that Whitey Bulger's crew used to use. And sure, the idea might not be inspired by The Departed. See, he agrees with me. Another good movie set in Boston. Actually, a pretty damn good movie, according to Scorsese. Not my favorite. Not your favorite. What's wrong with you? Okay, so the town's pretty good too. All right, so I like the town also, but I also like Departed. But see, Departed had Jack Nicholson in it, so there you go. But I think Boston is long in need of a chance to prove its worth in a video game. Fallout 4 showed everything blown to shit and in ruins. I think we deserve to see the city in its full glory. The city itself is extremely diverse, from your thriving downtown area full of hipsters, office workers, to your really rundown ghetto neighborhoods. You got a great variety of building designs across Boston as well. The true Bostonian being able to tell you what part of the city a building is just by looking at how it is built. I think Rockstar would have a lot of fun with a Boston setting. I think a lot of gamers would enjoy it as well. Well, I'd also like to see the Mafia franchise hit Boston at some point and run an Irish versus Italian war from the Italian perspective. I want that game to be set in the 60s. Okay, we're talking about Grand Theft Auto, not Mafia, okay? Get back on track here, Sedan. Back on track. I think Grand Theft Auto does an excellent modern commentary, and Boston really as a city that is both old and new at the same time, rich and poor, ripe for humor, make fun of how they talk. Well, everybody in every part of the world talks funny. I mean, people where I live would talk funny compared to how other people talk elsewhere. So people in New York talk funny. People in Boston talk funny. People in California talk funny. People in Canada obviously talk funny. People in the UK talk funny. So it's really dependent on your point of view when it comes to accents. But anyways, I like the idea of Boston, Sedan, and Young Knight. A fantastic choice. Boston, of course, was founded in 1630. And its original name was actually Tri-Mountains, I think, or Tri-Mountain, which translates obviously to three mountains, because I guess there's like three mountains around the Boston area. And Boston is very much ingrained in American Revolution history. You know, like the Tea Party, the Boston Massacre, etc., etc. So yes, Boston, the latest selection of future potential locations in Grand Theft Auto. And now we get to the last part of the video, and I realize it's gone on for a while, but we have two more selections. My final two. We're doing the sandwich routine. Now to finish that sandwich off, baby, with the other slice. All right, so my second to last submission is going to be all the way down under. That's right. We're going to the outback. Sydney, Australia, a.k.a. Botany Bay, the land down under. I think this would be a great location because it's on a completely different part of the world and a completely different culture, completely different place, somewhere we have yet to go in a Grand Theft Auto game. And obviously, with a lot of these other games and locations, I want some references, like some Mad Max references. Oh, you cannot go to Australia in Grand Theft Auto without some teasing regarding Mad Max, baby. Love Mad Max. It's one of my favorite series. And I'm also, as a sci-fi nerd, I'm also a big fan of Farscape. And even though Farscape is set out in space, it was filmed in Australia. In case you didn't know that. If you're a Farscape fan and you didn't know that, well, now you know. And my bae in Farscape is Chiana. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure like nobody watching this video is getting any of this because you're probably like, what's Farscape? Okay, so yes, obviously I think that would be really cool to have a Sydney, the city of Sydney, Grand Theft Auto version of it, along with a little bit of, I guess, of the outback, some of the good parts, some of the bad parts. Australians obviously getting pissed off if you confuse them with somebody from New Zealand, because they kind of have that little rivalry going on, New Zealand, versus Australia. It's a friendly rivalry. At the moment it is. Maybe one day it won't be so friendly. But other references, Vegemite sandwiches, kangaroos, crocodiles, koala bears. Also some very extremely dangerous animals, which I guess would include crocodiles. Maybe some Crocodile Dundee references, or the late Crocodile Hunter. Not the same person. Steve Irwin came along later. Okay, and of course, there's also emus. We could also make fun of the Australian emu war. Seriously, there was an Australian emu war. You need to look that shit up. It's funny. Speaking of war, you thought I forgot about it, Rockstar, didn't you? You thought you would not mention it in Grand Theft Auto 5, and that people would just conveniently forget about the little war you started in Grand Theft Auto 3. But not this Grand Theft Auto fan. I want to see a bit more info regarding the history of the Australian-American War. And if you think I'm joking, I'm not. It was mentioned in Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and even in Grand Theft Auto 4. So, yeah. If you go to the Outback, if you go down under, if you go to Australia, the Australian-American War has to be a thing in Australia. I mean, it doesn't have to be ongoing. It could be history. It could be something Australians talk about. Did they win the war? Did they lose the war? Was there an armistice? What were some of the big battles that took place in that war that never really happened, except for in the Grand Theft Auto verse? And my final selection for top 10 future locations for Grand Theft Auto is the Lone Star State, Texas, which a lot of people confuse with Australia. There's some similarities between Australia and Texas. They're not exactly anywhere close to each other, though. I mean, they're like thousands and thousands and thousands of miles apart, but I can see why people make the confusion. And why do I pick Texas? Well, because of the fact that I am a child of two states. Both sides of my family are from Louisiana. I have lived in Louisiana since I graduated from high school. And I will never forget the fact that I'm also born Texan. I was born in East Texas. I grew up in East Texas. And I have friends in East Texas and family in East Texas. So I'm a child of Texas and Louisiana. And I feel like Texas deserves to be its own location in a future Grand Theft Auto game. It is one of the largest states in the U.S., both size and population-wise. It also has some of the largest cities in the U.S. as well, including Houston, San Antonio, Dallas-Fort Worth, and its state capital, Austin, happens to be one of the quickest growing cities in the country. And of course, there's a lot of cool stuff about Texas. It's large. It has a lot of different areas to it, like the Gulf of Mexico, beaches. Not as nice beaches as, say, the East Coast or the West Coast, but there's still beaches along the Gulf of Mexico. And then, of course, you got the woods of East Texas, where I'm from, the hill country in the center, North Texas. I think there's some mountains up there. You go out west, and there's a bit of desert. Southwest Texas, the Edwards Plateau. So there's a lot of different regions you could check out in the state of Texas, a.k.a. Tejas, the Lone Star State. And, of course, you got Texas, American, Mexican history, a lot of that culture stuff, including the Texas War for Independence, and the fact that once upon a time, Texas was its own country. So, there you go. The top 10 locations. Most of them picked by you. Well, 6 out of 10. That's, and some of them picked by me as well. For future Grand Theft Auto game. Let me know, which location do you like the most? Which one do you think would be the best location for a future Grand Theft Auto game? Texas, Australia, Great Britain, Mexico, Boston, Cleveland, Denver, Detroit, Ottawa, or Tokyo? Feel free to let us know below in the comments section. And as always, thank you so much for watching my top 10 videos, my discuss videos, my rant videos, my let's play videos, all my salty videos, anything I do like news-wise regarding Grand Theft Auto, Mafia 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, etc. You guys are the reason why the GeauxBurns Nation is so awesome. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Cinco de Mayo, as well as a great weekend.